I came across OpenToonz several years ago whilst looking at another great animation platform, TVPaint. At the time, I just wanted a good 2D animation software, and I'd heard a lot of good things about TVPaint. So I was busy researching it at the time when I accidentally came across OpenToonz. When I say accidentally, what I mean is I'd been watching a lot of Studio Ghibli films at the time, and in doing so got to learn that they made many of their movies using something called Toonz. So I started to look into Toonz and read up all about it. I discovered that Toonz was a 2D animation platform built and released by an Italian company, Digital Video, in Rome, Italy in 1993. So it's been around for a long time now, 30 years, which is quite interesting as it's not that well known in the animation industry when it's compared with the likes of Flash or Animate CC, Toon Boom, etc. Even TV Paint is better known than OpenTunes. Anyway, back to the story of how I came across it. Toonz was picked up and used by legendary animation house Studio Ghibli. Atsushi Ukuyi, executive imaging director at Studio Ghibli at the time, explained that they initially chose Toonz back in 1995 in order to continue producing theatre-quality animation without additional stress, and a desire for software that had the ability to combine the hand-drawn animation with the digitally painted ones seamlessly. Here in a clip from an NHK documentary, we can see the late great Studio Ghibli colorist Michio Yusada working with Hayao Miyazaki on Ponyo using Toonz. This was back in March 2007. Because all the animation at Studio Ghibli was hand-drawn, the studio itself developed a scanning tool, GTS, that greatly enhanced the scanning power of Toonz. And over the many years that it was used at Studio Ghibli, it was customized and added to with many other tools. But I'll get to them later. Back to my story. So Studio Ghibli started using Toonz in 1995, and they used it to create some of their legendary films, the first of which was Princess Mononoke, released in 1997. And since then, Toonz has been used in the ink and paint, color design, and digital composition process of almost all of the works by Studio Ghibli. And these include My Neighbors the Yamadas, Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, Ponyo, and Oriety. And just whilst we are listing films here, let's include a few Studio Ghibli related films made using OpenTunes since its release in 2016. First of all, there's Mary and the Witch's Flower, which was the first film from Studio Ponok, founded by former Studio Ghibli producer Yoshiaki Nishimura. And more recently, OpenTunes was widely used in the Studio Ghibli production of The Boy and the Heron, which premiered in 2023. However, it wasn't only Studio Ghibli who were producing world-class animation with Toonz and OpenTunes. Many other studios were developing movies, games, and TV series using OpenTunes. For example, Rough Draft produced Matt Groening's early Futurama and Steven Universe using Toonz. MTV produced The Max, and Fox produced Anastasia using Toonz. It's been used on many Japanese films and productions, including Batman, Ninja, Natsuzora, Okozen, Promare, Bell, and more. Even Steven Spielberg's animation company Emblemation used Toonz to create Balto back in 1995. Great, so it's been part of some amazing animated films. But how did Toonz actually become OpenTunes? Well, in March 2016, Japanese publisher Duango acquired the Toonz software from Digital Video, and on the 26th of that month, released it as an open source product called OpenTunes. Their intention was to make Toonz a world standard for 2D animation, said Claudio Mattei, managing director of Digital Video at the time. The news was a big deal in animation back in 2016. Cartoon Brew wrote at the time, "The announcement of OpenTunes comes at a time when animation is experiencing the biggest boom period in its history. However, many of the young artists in these regions, which is South and Central America, Africa, and the Middle East, do not have the resources to invest in proprietary software. That's especially why we view OpenTunes, a free professional-grade 2D animation software, as a complete and total game changer for the animation industry moving forward. The animation floodgates just opened." That was from Cartoon Brew back in 2016. And so OpenTunes came to be. But back to the Studio Ghibli connection. They'd been using and customizing Toonz since 1995, 11 years before it went open source. So because of all these additions and updates to Toonz that Studio Ghibli had made, when it was finally released as an open source product in 2016, it was known as the Studio Ghibli edition. But let's dig deeper and have a look at some of these customizations and additions that Studio Ghibli made. The first was a scanning tool, GTS, that vastly improved the ability to scan and use hand-drawn artwork. GTS stands for Ghibli Trace Scanner. It's separate to OpenTunes, but can be downloaded free from the same place one can download OpenTunes and many of the other additional add-on tools like KumaWorks, IwaWarper, and XD Viewer. That place is the OpenTunes GitHub site, and it's all available there for free. Well, I did some more digging into where all these amazing tools emanate from, and I discovered Shun Iwasawa. He is a visual effects artist known for his work at Studio Ghibli, particularly on projects such as The Boy and the Heron and Tales from Earthsea. He also contributes to the development and maintenance of the OpenTunes animation software, and has been very involved in the development related to the software's features and updates. Here he is at the launch of OpenTunes back in March 2016. So let's look at some of these features that Shun has been a part of developing. First of all, there's IwaWarper, which was first developed for the production of When Marnie Was There back in 2014. It was further improved for The Boy and the Heron and was used in many scenes in this latest Ghibli movie. IwaWarper is a software for warping still images like patterns, textures, smudges, and fitting them into the shape of reference animation drawings. Whilst we are talking of Studio Ghibli's latest film, The Boy and the Heron, let's look at what else was used in its creation. In the key and in-between animation process, OpenTunes was used for pencil testing, color designing, and coloring all characters. In the ink and paint process, GTS was used for scanning all animation drawings. In the CG process, IwaWarper was used for harikomi, or paste-up, which is a warping of painted textures to match contours in hand-drawn objects, as we referred to earlier. The results can be seen in many of the scenes, especially in the latter half of the film. During the digital composition process, all scenes were composed and rendered with OpenTunes. New visual effects such as glare FX, floor bump FX, and the Flow FX series were developed especially for this film. Additionally, new HDR rendering features were developed for screening in Dolby Cinema. All of these new effects and new features have been included in OpenTunes version 1.7 and newer versions. Just backing up here a bit, let's take a closer look at a few of the latest effects mentioned here that were added to OpenTunes in time for the latest The Boy and the Heron movie. Firstly, there was IwaWarper, which we mentioned earlier. That already existed in Toonz back in 2014 but was upgraded for the 2023 movie. As mentioned earlier, IwaWarper was used for harikomi or paste-up, which is a warping of painted textures to match the contours of the hand-drawn objects. Then there's glare FX. It's an effect to reproduce radial streaks of light that appear around a bright light source. Then there was floor bump FX. It's an effect that makes the floor surface bumpy and uneven as if in 3 dimensions and makes it possible for 3-dimensional bumpiness to be controlled in OpenTunes without involving 3D software. Finally, there's the Flow FX series. It's an effect that generates a dirt appearance on characters, and by using a drawn diagonal line as a reference, it is possible to create brush strokes while following the character's movement. It's important to note again that all these new effects and new features are included in the latest OpenTunes versions. So there you go, that's a brief history of OpenTunes, its beginnings and background and how it came to be, and also how I came across it. It certainly is not as well known as the major commercial products like Flash or Animate CC as it's called now, Toon Boom, TVPaint, etc. And I don't expect it will ever get the same market share of some of these products. Perhaps because most production houses like the after sales backup that comes with these commercial products, and OpenTunes doesn't have this as it's free. But don't let the relatively diminutive size of the OpenTunes market deceive you into thinking this is anything less than a top-class 2D animation program. It certainly is one, and its use by one of the best animation studios in the world, Studio Ghibli, just proves it. and that's not to mention all the other studios and productions that have used it over the years. So make no mistake, OpenTunes is a top-class animation product that punches way above its weight. I'm so thrilled that I accidentally came across it, and I look forward to the years ahead to see what it will become. I have high expectations. As a postscript, let me just say that it is not the tool itself that makes the masterpiece. It's always a craftsman. OpenTunes is only a tool. All the Studio Ghibli movies would have been created with or without Toonz or OpenTunes by the likes of Hayao Miyazaki and other legendary animators. But that Studio Ghibli chose to go with Toonz back in 1995, and the fact that OpenTunes ultimately emerged from such a highly esteemed animation studio, to me is enough of a statement of its prowess and quality. I hope you will, like me, enjoy using OpenTunes for your animation work for many years to come. All the best and happy animating with OpenTunes. So this is all in the Animating with OpenTunes course. The links are in the description here on YouTube. Please, if you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and do so. Also, please go ahead and sign up for my newsletters, and I hope I'll see you here again soon. Thanks very much and happy animating out there. All the best. Bye.